What Now, What Next, dealing with our general topic tonight about health and well-being. Before we do that, I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. Sorry, we're just getting I'll just mute that. Thank you. Firstly, one of the things that we've been doing this week in our office is we've organised a very special relationship with Woolworths for those that need online delivery. So we've got these kindness cards, and this is particularly for those people at home that are really struggling to get to a supermarket. If you fit into that category and you want some help in terms of getting some delivery, contact my office, and the number will come up tonight. And please, we've got these for those people that aren't able to get out, that want the supermarket brought to their home, and we'll be able to help you out with that. The other thing I just wanted to make mention as well is we've organised something that's called a grant finder, and that is for people that are really looking for some help where there are federal, state and local government agencies that provide specific grants, and also philanthropic organisations. So if you fit into an organisation or a small business that is looking for some money, particularly during these difficult times, contact us and we can provide you access to. It's effectively a one-stop shop for grants. Well, we've now got our guests with us, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, Judith. Good evening, Morris. And welcome to all of you on our session tonight, talking about what now, what next when it comes to health and well-being. We've got, of course, Judith David, who is a clinical psychologist who works in a whole range of helping people. And welcome, Judith.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Excellent. Yeah, brilliant. Your home office, and we'll talk a little bit more about exactly who you see and what you do in a minute. And of course, our business futurist, Morris Miselowski, who is my regular guest, and he will be talking about the future perspective in terms of this really important sector of health and wellbeing. Welcome, Morris.
Yeah, good to be back.
Excellent. So, Judith, I'd like to start with you, if I could. So there was a survey which we saw during the week, and I think it actually featured on the Today Show, which said that 60% of the public at the moment around Australia are finding it really tough dealing with COVID-19, finding it really stressful, and 1 in 2 are struggling with the lockdown. Would you say that that's pretty much what you're hearing?
I would definitely have to say that I'm not surprised by those statistics and those results. This is a huge change for all of us. We're going through a global pandemic. Our lives have pretty much been turned upside down, I would say. For a lot of people, they've never experienced, anything like this. And so it's a big adjustment in so many ways. And I think that it's a real struggle for many people, from something very small to not being able to go to your favorite store, to something really huge like very serious, dealing with significant anxiety. So yeah, I guess I'm not surprised by those statistics. Yeah.
And you, in terms of your practice, so you would see people normally in your practice in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And at the moment, how are you seeing your patients? Some you're doing that online, and also tell us a little bit about the type of person you would be seeing. What age group? A little bit of background.
Yeah, sure. So basically, I would say it's half and half. I'm doing half from the clinic, so that's actually where I am at the moment in my office at my clinic, and half through telehealth, which is online, where we can chat like this through Zoom or FaceTime or whatever platform you prefer. And but yeah, I'm finding that most of my clients, especially my adolescent clients, prefer to come into the clinic, and I really hope that I can continue to offer that. seeing clients in the clinic, because there's nothing like face-to-face contact. You know, it's amazing. I really thought my teen clients would love to see me, you know, online and through FaceTime, but they are more than happy to come in. So basically, I see clients ranging from the age of 11 and up. I used to see younger children in my previous job, but this one where I am at the moment in a private setting in Malvern, yeah, it's pretty much 11 and up. And yeah, seeing the clients coming into the clinic, we're obviously maintaining all the things we need to do, social distance, you know, pouring on the gel, the antibacterial gel, and, you know, adhering to all the government regulations. But I'm so glad that it's amazing. A lot of my clients are saying, Judith, you know, it's the highlight of my week, you know, coming to see you. I get to get dressed and put on my jeans and actually come and see you for therapy. And I think that's wonderful. I think, well, in a way, I think that's a really good thing that they're excited to come in and work on themselves and talk face-to-face. There's nothing like face-to-face. But of course, I work here with two other amazing psychologists, and we all offer telehealth as well to those who can't come in.
So that survey that I mentioned before, and I'll ask you and then I'll throw to Morris, but that survey, there were 4 elements of that survey did talk about some of the things that people feel really stressed about, include losing a job, losing effectively your home, and paying bills, the stresses of paying bills, and not being able to see family and friends. And we'll actually put a poll on here tonight as well, where people can rate what they think is the most stressful. What are your patients telling you? What do they feel most stressed about at the moment?
It's a really good question. We need a few hours for that. But basically, in general, I would say all the things that you would hear your friends and family talk about. So missing that physical contact with friends and family, especially, would be a huge one. Missing life, you know, pre-COVID life, and just feeling really free to explore and do what you want to do. So there's those sort of general things. It does depend on who I'm talking to, like which client I'm dealing with. If I'm speaking to one of my adolescent clients, the biggest thing that they say and talk about is missing that physical contact with their friends and family. So they come second to friends, and just really missing seeing them and hanging out with them. And yeah, and another one is sport, footy, you know, it's huge. Missing watching the game with their mates, and even at the local pub, little things like that. Generally, you know, both genders, male, female, saying very similar things like that.
Yeah, Morris, we were talking about that earlier in terms of sport being such an important connector. What are your thoughts in terms of where things are at the moment in what stresses people?
Well, lots. But going back to the sport thing, to me, it's being part of primal. It's what we've done as humans. Going back for millenniums, we've always wanted to get together in big stadiums or big spaces and be with other people and roar and let out energy and do all that kind of stuff. And we really are missing it at the moment, Dave, as you said. I want to ask Judith a question too. Prior to COVID-19, were you doing much telehealth? Were you doing many consultations by Skype or Zoom or whatever?
A handful, I would have to say, not a lot. And it would usually be with clients that I've already seen who have relocated overseas, or clients who have gone to various countries just to travel and wanted to keep in contact, keep up with their therapy. But I would say it would be a very small percent of my client base that would seek out that. But it was so great to do that and continue to do that. I love keeping in touch with them and knowing that I'm just a click away, you know, that we can still connect online. It's awesome. Yeah.
And we're going to come back to that, Dave. Again, look at telehealth and e-health later on in this conversation too. But I was just interested to see what it was before, so that we can measure it later on in this conversation and talk about what it might become. So,
Morris, in terms of you, you've spent most of your life working in a very different situation than many. I think 20 plus years from that very room you're currently sitting in. What are your tips for others?
hey, look, I'm the outlier to everybody else. I want my own social isolating back. I'm so used to being home alone and having no one around me that I'm kind of missing that kind of solitude. So I must be the only person on the planet. But still, it's great to have everyone home anyway. Yeah. So to me, I've always worked a different lifestyle, as you know, Dave. I mean, I'm all about change. My entire life is a conversation of change. It is for me and for my clients. And what we're looking at really is not change for change's sake, but the notion that we are humans. And as humans, I believe that we were born in change. Now, everything about us from the moment we're an embryo to the moment we disappear is all about physical change, our body adapting to an external environment, us knowing intuitively what that world might mean from us. In other words, we're cold or we're hungry or we need to do something. So change to me has been a part of a natural evolution, but for many people, it hasn't been. So my world is really about that. My conversations now, Dave, really are about that kind of an attitude. I've always talked about leaning into change. In other words, accepting it, not just for the pure sake of accepting it, but actually leaning in, listening to it, trying not to be afraid of it, trying to understand where there is opportunity. And that's the word I use most often, not where there's a problem with it, but where there's an opportunity that exists inside of it. Nothing about what we're going through now makes sense to any of us. To me, it's akin of the old-fashioned pinball game, where you really don't know where the ball's going to be, and you got to keep doing this and flipping it through, and it kind of hits everywhere, and you're not quite sure anything about that landscape at all. That's what we're going through at the moment. So I talk a lot about change. I talk about taking a different route, that we know now that things will be different. So let's just accept it. It may be difficult, but let's see if we can accept that and wonder what world might look like. You and I talked last week, and we'll talk more in this session again about the things about the world that most probably will offer opportunity. Judith's already said in her piece that just in a small way, the fact that she has telehealth now, that she's able to consult online, might give her opportunity in a practice that otherwise wasn't available. And also, more importantly, give the community and her patients the opportunity to interact with her, where before they may not have. So I think there are lots of terrible things, of course, but lots of positive things that might be ahead too. And on some small scales, one of the things that I found works really well for me is something as simple as changing my lock screen and on my phone. And what I've done there is put a carousel of all my favorite places, because I travel a lot, so I can't get there physically. So I've literally put a slideshow in there. Every time I go to my phone, it shows me somewhere that I've enjoyed being before, and I can take just a moment to think about that wonderful time and that wonderful opportunity, and I can move on. And to me, it's not about lamenting the fact that I'm not there now. It's actually being joyful for the fact that I was there, and I can think about that. So I'm looking for all these small things around me that give me satisfaction, give me hope, and give me a possibility that there is a future, because there is one.
So, Judith, interesting, Morris talks about some of those opportunities in kind of looking beyond. Do you see, in terms of particularly the people that you were talking to, one of the big issues is kind of the anxiety about what's next and how to prepare yourselves for kind of where to from here?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about anxiety and anticipatory anxiety a lot with my clients, fear of the unknown, and a lot of our sessions are about embracing the unknown, and just like Morris said, about making that part of your everyday life, that we don't know what's going to happen next. But you know what? That's okay. You're probably going to cope. If you think about something that you're most anxious about, something that you dread happening, it could be the worst thought ever. And it does, when you think about it, it creates such anxiety. But when you really think about it, and when we discuss it, I reckon you'll cope. It's going to be horrible. It will be terrible. It could be really, really distressing. but then we move forward. And just like Morris has said before, we're born for change. We're designed from the moment we're born. We're constantly evolving and changing. And my clients see that once we discuss it, they think, wow, actually, I reckon I'll cope. I reckon I'll go through the stages of shock, of grief, of whatever it might be, but I'll get to the stage where I'll cope and I'll be okay. And once they see that, the anxiety, the SUD level, subjective unit of distress, reduces dramatically. And so then it's free. You feel so free when you're not worried about the future. I'm being very general here. And of course, there's lots of things that people are concerned about. I'm seeing clients who have lost their jobs, who are dealing with serious issues like domestic violence and very high anxiety, thoughts of suicide, so many different things. And it's complex for so many people. And I guess one thing I just wanted to mention was the one complaint, I guess, or one thing that keeps coming up again and again with my clients is that, yes, we're all in this together. That's for sure. Yeah, we're in this on a global scale. But I think what's missing too is the idea that, hey, your challenges are different to my challenges. We're human, which means that we live very different lives. We have lots of commonalities, yes, but your day might look so different to my day, and my worries and challenges might be so different to yours. So I'll see someone who's, a 25-year-old living on their own, struggling with the loss of job and that sort of thing, to a parent who's struggling with online learning for their a child with autism. I mean, completely different challenges. And so I think we need to have a dialogue about, yes, we're all in this together, and everyone's saying, we're all in this together. But I think really listening to the challenges that each person has and empathizing with each other. We just want to be heard. I think, Morris, you'll agree. At the end of the day, we just want to be heard and feel validated and know that there's someone there. And that can definitely provide a lot of reassurance that, yes, we're in it together, but how are you going with your child? How are you going? How are you coping? And it could be, is a very different picture to the person next door.
It's certainly something that we're getting in our office. It's just it's someone that's prepared to listen and to provide some kind of advice as to where they can go. Interesting, I had a call from somebody on Friday, and she had been looking forward to days to go and have a dinner at another adult's home. She lives by herself. She's been locked up for 4+ weeks, and she's suffering a lot of anxiety and mental health issues. And all of a sudden, she got this phone call at lunchtime on the Friday to say, I'm sorry, we can't have you over because we're worried that we may get a $1,600 fine for having you over in our house. And that completely, you could see that she had her way of coping with something, and having that situation completely changed her game. And so I think, having to be able to work, I mean, there are rules, we understand that, but we also need to understand in our situation, there's got to be common sense, and there's got to be ways that we can work through things to ensure that we can help the individual. Because, one of the things, and I wanted to ask you this, and then we'll throw it back to Morris, but one of the things that I'm really concerned about is we're dealing with the here and now when it comes to people's health and well-being, but what will come later is, I think, picking up a lot of the pieces for many of these people and get them kind of back to where they need to be. And I'm wondering, from your perspective, what you're seeing and what we could be doing to ensure that getting people back on the horse, so to speak, can be less impactful than kind of where we might end up if we don't have those pieces right.
Yeah, good question. I guess there's just so much to that question. I guess again, it's so different for everyone. And I think in terms of picking up the pieces, I don't know, I kind of take a bit of a positive spin with that. I'm so, even with the people in my clients who are finding this really difficult, they're tapping into the side in them that's able to manage and able to cope. And as we've said before, a theme that's come up already in this talk is embracing change and being okay. So when it changes back, I can't help but feel quite positive that we'll just adapt again, and that we'll feel excited about the little things and about going to our favorite restaurants and going and seeing our friends and giving them big hugs and doing all those things. I'm not minimizing in terms of, definitely I can think of a few clients who will have quite a bit of trauma, post-trauma after this, and are dealing with that already now. So in terms of picking up the pieces, I feel like prevention is the cure. I feel like, well, let's look at preventing that. Let's do what we can now, just like these talks. Let's talk about it. Let's have a dialogue. Come in and be there for one another. I think one thing that I'd like to bring up just at this point is a concept. It's called a loneliness, not loneliness. It's a loneliness. It's got an A in the front. It's been called, this pandemic's been called the loneliness pandemic, yeah? And a lot of people, what a loneliness is it's basically the emotional discomfort that we experience from a lack of time spent alone. And it's quite interesting when you look at it. If anything, this pandemic can teach us, hey, maybe I need to work on entertaining myself and self-soothing a little bit more and relying on self a bit more, which is a good thing. The ability to be mature and enjoy one's own company is just as important as maintaining connections with others. To have that connection to self is something that I feel, if we can work on it now, gosh, if we can be our own best friend, I mean, what a gift would that be, to be our own best friend. Working on those things, I feel like when it changes again, that we'll cope. You know, we're going to cope. Will it be difficult? Will it be yuck? Will it be hard? Will it be an adjustment? Yes. But will we cope in the end? Yeah.
Thanks, Judith. Yeah,
life is always lumpy and bumpy. Judith, the other thing I'd like to canvass is the notion. For a long time, I've believed that too many of us have our self-worth keyed into our work, and it's what defines us. Yeah. And this period, to me, is really the stripping away of that. It's not that we won't have work, and it's not that we're not that job title anymore. It's just that person that we thought we would have been just doesn't really exist anymore. And who do we become after this? So I'd be interested to understand your viewpoint on that, and whether we really are learning a lesson, and whether we should learn the lesson to take our self-identity and for it not to be so attached to our working title.
Oh my God, I just love what you just said. It's something that I constantly say. There's a difference between what we are and who we are. It's a concept that I talk about a lot, and it's something, I guess, that I could spend a lot of hours talking about. Something that we just sort of in a nutshell in this talk, but what we are represents the things that we do. So yes, going to work, having a family or not having family, having friends, what we do with our time. And a lot of us get into strife, into depression, anxiety, or stress, basically when we connect what we are to who we are, which is just what you're saying. I'm just saying it in a bit of a I don't know, fancy way. And so it's really important that you're right, that we spend time knowing, well, who am I? Well, who am I if I'm not working anymore, if I'm not watching footy anymore, if I'm not with my friends, then who am I? Well, what am I doing? And I think that is such a big question. And to give you a little hint, a small answer, and something that could spend sessions discussing, who we are is always enough. Who we are is just but one soul. It's us. If I said to you, Morris or David, who are you? What would you say?
Go on, Dave.
Where do we start?
It's one answer. It's a really simple answer. Morris, got any ideas?
Yeah, I normally say I'm a human. I start from there.
Yeah. You're Morris and you're
me. I was going to say I'm me. Yeah.
I'm me. I'm me. And that's exactly right. And so it's a hard concept to understand because we're constantly taught that who you are is what you do, how you look, your appearance, your job.
Can I pick up on that, Judith? Because it's interesting. In a normal situation, you would have people that are having a difficult set of circumstances, and they would find it, potentially really hard to ask for help and whatever, because they may feel embarrassed if they're in a situation, in terms of they're out of a job or they've lost their home or whatever that may be. One of the things that I think the leveler with COVID is we're all in a difficult situation right now. So if anyone wants to put their hand up and say, hey, I need some help, they can do it, because we know that there's every excuse in the world for it. So I think the one great thing about this is a leveler, in terms it puts everybody in the same spot, and it doesn't matter whether you're really rich, you're really poor, whether you're from a big family or on your own, everybody is affected in one way, shape or form. And it comes back to your point that you've just said there, in terms of, okay, in terms of who are we, we are an individual that, just might need a bit of a, are you okay? Tap on the shoulder and say, do we need some, is there anything we can do right now? And I think coming back to where we've got to, and this is one of the things I think is so fantastic about us being Aussies, is that we're always in for looking out for one another. We're always in for that checkup, and you need a hand, we'll help you. No matter what, we'll help you. And the best thing about this pandemic was exactly the same with the bushfires, is people put their hand up and said, we are going to help. And I think, if there is one thing that defines Aussies, it is we are there for everyone and we will help no matter what, without any question. So, that's my rant. But I just thought I wanted to share that. But I want to come back, Morris, just to you for a minute, because, you're all about adapting, which is what Judith was talking about before, and you're all about looking at those opportunities ahead. Where are the opportunities right now? So where does somebody who's kind of dealing with, what the next job might be, what the next opportunity might be, they're in between opportunities. What is that opportunity?
So firstly, we gave a really long answer to that last week. And if people weren't on the webinar last week, I'd encourage them to go back to your Facebook, my website, and have a look at that. I've given you a complete list of jobs and industries that are going to flourish, those that won't. So there's a really complete answer outside of healthcare. But looking at healthcare specifically, it really is a matter of understanding the tasks, as we said, the tasks being the individual things that we do, and seeing whether anyone needs that of us. In other words, driving may never have been a part of something what we do, but we can drive now. So is there a job around for a driver? And just for the time being, that's good enough. That'll get us through where we need to be. So we talked last week about breaking down our careers into jobs and more likely into tasks at the moment, and just being task oriented for a little while until things get a bit surer, and then worrying about jobs and others. So looking forward, we know that health, like Judith and many others, are doing incredible work, and that work is only going to increase. The health scene for me is one of the sectors that will definitely, of course, now increase, but as we move through this and out of this, will increase ever more. There are all sorts of things that we will need to do. If we just take one really small aspect, we've talked, for instance, about our health being put on hold, and those operations that we're not quite able yet to have, those elective surgeries, will come on board really quickly. And there will be a whole host of people that will be needed, their skill sets, their abilities. And we're not just talking in theatre, we're talking around the hospital, we're talking about the logistics industry, we're talking about all of the ripple effects of getting people in and out of elective surgeries. Those sorts of jobs or tasks, as they most probably will be first off, will definitely ride. And that's not too far away. We're just waiting for the first call of when those things will happen. So I've suggested always that what we need to do is try and prioritize jobs, tasks that are likely to come back first, They're likely to be the ones that are not as close together, that don't really get into that 1.5 meter apart type rule, where it's relatively easy for people to be together in those spaces. Look at those and then wonder what the ripple effects, what will people need in those sorts of roles, jobs, tasks, activities, and how can I be involved in them? There are lots of jobs out there at the moment. Really strange thing to say, but there are literally thousands and thousands of jobs out there at the moment.
Getting back into industries and emerging industries, and I don't know, there's been a couple, we like to talk with innovation about Israel as a place that creates a whole lot of very interesting things. There's two examples of that I wanted to share, and then get both your opinion, Morris, and then your views, Judith, as a practitioner. One was, there's a great Facebook video going out there at the moment of a patient that gets a box delivered to her doorstep, and it's effectively the clinical checkup. And she opens the box, and the GP is effectively at the other end via a camera, and all of the things that she needs to do the checkup is basically there, and the doctor remotely can do a full checkup of everything without actually having to be there at all. And then the flip side, which has practically been happening for a long while, in terms of how Israel do their ambulance service with MDA. So in Australia, we have our paramedics, which are very highly trained, very specialised, and they will do everything they can at the scene. In Israel, what they do is they get people to, largely volunteers, that pick people up and they get them to the hospital as quickly as they possibly can. But all of the care that's given, if somebody's had a heart attack, is done through an app on a phone. So they can actually talk it through, they can work with a patient using, if you like, technology to do what they need to do, and they get people to the hospital within minutes. And I'm not saying one system is a better system, but it's interesting how technology is used there. Where do you think, in terms of the future of health, may be, Morris, in some of this stuff? And Judith, I want to ask you after Morris, following from Morris, how do you think that would play out from a practitioner's perspective?
Okay, so everyone sit back. We're going to be here for hours now. E-health and M-health, which is electronic health and mobile health, have been around for 30 years. Dave, you were on your soapbox. I'm going to borrow it now and stand up on mine. We could have done this stuff 20, 30 years ago. I mean, truly, a lot of the technology that's around now is far better, far faster. It's able to connect. All of those things with time have gotten better. But the notion of connecting people with technology has been available. One of the things that has to come out of this, or we've all wasted our time, is that health can be provided where and when it's appropriate to the patient and the practitioner. It's about situational need, that where it's appropriate for people to be together physically, that's 100% exactly where that should take place. But where it's possible for that to be used, maybe, as Judith's saying now, seeing some patients over Skype or whatever she's using, because that's practical and purposeful now. But for me, always, it's a fluid opportunity, meaning that there will be times when it's best to do one, times when it's best to do the other, and times when it's best to do a mixture of both. And that's really what we need to do in medicine, but in our health, in our lives generally. And that has to be the outcome of this. The technology is an enabler. That's all it is. So to your point, there is incredible work being done, and has been done for quite a long period of time, around being able to digitize humans, which is basically what's happening now. Through our apps, whether we like it or not, is when we carry a mobile phone around with us, it's gathering information about us and around us. We can choose what we do with that, and many of us have chosen to use Fitbits. We've chosen to use our device to tell us how many steps we're walking. We're digitizing our lives. We're literally turning it into zeros and ones. When we digitize our lives, we can begin to share it. So I can actually send that across the street, across the suburb, across the world, and give other people access to it. And when they have access to it, when I have access to it, I can begin to manipulate it. So I can learn all kinds of things. I can diagnose, I can prognose, and I can do all kinds of things that I wasn't able to before. So in my future world, we use these tools really effectively to be able to distribute health, which is what's happening now. We don't centralize it as we did before into a building or a place. We allow people access from where they are. So we're seeing rehabilitation being done at work. at home. We're seeing it being done wherever is appropriate. That's the world, David, that we have to move into. And just as an aside, because I'd forgotten in my previous answer, if anyone can remember what that was or the question, you talked about where the jobs are. There's been some really good websites around. There's one that I've used in the last couple of weeks that I like, and I'd love our listeners to send me more if there are. But it's called, one word, stillhiring.com.au. Stillhiring.com.au. And it has there a list. So you go in there, choose a state and the place that you want to work in, and it has a list of all the companies and jobs that are currently available during COVID and again afterwards. Stillhiring.com.au. Sorry, it was an aside, but I thought an important one. And I took you off the topic of e-health and m-health.
Thank you. No, that's great, Morris. Judith, what about from your perspective, from a practitioner's perspective? Where do you see these tools in maybe supporting what you do? Where do you see your future consultation and care going?
Well, I couldn't help but think about my older clients. I have 2 clients that come in from Geelong to come and see me. That's a fair drive. One of them takes public transport. And I'm kind of feeling a bit silly now, thinking, why didn't we just Skype? Why did she come in? But look, it was, part of it is she loved getting out of the house, and it was an adventure for one of them. The other one, I would say, was probably more of a task getting here. But wow, I would definitely, I think that we'd have more sessions. I think that I'd be able to see them weekly as opposed to monthly if she could stay home and we could have our sessions online, absolutely, through Skype or Zoom or whatever it might be. Absolutely. I will admit, though, I'm kind of a 90s girl. I still write my notes. I don't know if I've quite moved to the 21st century like Morris has. I think I still prefer face-to-face. I prefer, and I think my clients still at this stage, and I'm not saying that it's not a preference, but just having the whole sensory experience of coming and face-to-face sessions where you're using all your senses, the smell of the clinic, they come in and have a coffee, or the sounds that you'll hear, and using all your senses as part of that experience of therapy is still, I think, important to mention, and I prefer. But I just love the fact that, absolutely what you said there, Morris, I just thought, hello, why didn't I see these clients online? And I think that's awesome. I think that we'd be able to see more of each other. So
just following from that, do you think particularly, Judith, in terms of one of the positives to come from COVID has been people's priorities around family, and particularly I know Morris and I talk a lot about work-life balance, particularly that work-life balance of what's really important to everybody, and the fact that they've got there is more time. The one thing that this has given us is a whole heap of time. Time, as you said earlier, to reflect, to kind of figure out who you are as an individual, but also time to spend that with family, and therefore that kind of being the opposite in terms of some of the stresses of work that would bring with us. I mean, I know that people still have the stress of earning $1, having to work, but just having that work-life balance.
Absolutely. And isn't that the key to life, having balance? I mean, it's something that we've said from, years ago, being able to have balance at all times, and especially during times like this, to have variety in your day, to have that time to have breakfast together as a family, to be able to help your kids with homework, to so many things, even if there's no family, to be able to sit back and watch a show and take that time out and practice being alone. Don't forget that. Practice doing things on your own and enjoying it. So for sure, I would say that this whole thing has taught us a lot and given us a lot more opportunity. I was speaking to someone, opportunity to do the things that we weren't doing before. I was speaking to just a friend the other day, and he was saying that his life is absolutely hectic. You know, gets to work at 5 a.m., home really late, and he's working from home more often than usual. And he was just saying, I just get to breathe a little bit more. I even, you know, took off my shoes and just, you know, walked on the grass outside for no apparent reason. And I just felt connected to nature. It's something that he'd never done before. And he's like, is this normal, Judith? I'm like, yeah, that's good. That's normal. You know, and just having fun, you know, and enjoying the times that we were also, rushy and trying to fit so much in our day. So I think that, we've taken a bit of a step back, which is just wonderful to see. So I do think that, I guess I can talk about it now, but personality factors, the big 5 personality traits, the acronyms OCEAN: openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And I wanted to mention personality because there's a lot of research suggesting that personality is playing a big part in just how people are coping with this pandemic, and you know, what people are making more time for. So someone, for instance, who's quite high on the conscientiousness scale might get so excited about rearranging their wardrobe, you know, color coordinated wardrobe. And but for someone else, you know, maybe high on extroversion, that might be a complete nightmare, and they're busting to go outside and connect with others, and they're really missing a lot of that physical.
So what are they? What are those again? Give us those again.
OCEAN. So it's openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So that the clients that I mainly might see would be high on the neuroticism scale, for instance. And so there's a lot of high anxiety there, and anticipatory anxiety, and some illness anxiety as well. I'm seeing a bit of a surge of that. I think it's very interesting. Horses for courses. What works for one person might not necessarily work for someone else.
Yeah.
So I think that we need to take that into account. So someone might love that this has got them to spend more time with family. Great. But for someone else who might be highly extroverted or high on openness to experience, for instance, might be experiencing a lot of stress.
So Morris, have you organised your wardrobe at the moment? What have you been doing?
This is it, Dave. This is the entire wardrobe. What else do I need? All the other things I use for stage and elsewhere are packed away. They'll be there for quite a while in mothballs. The thing, Judith, I want to pick up in is I actually don't believe in work-life balance. I think it's a misnomer. I think it's something we've been sold. It's a pup we've been sold for the last 150 years. And I think we're talking semantics. But I believe it's fluidity that we want in our lives, which is what we're proving right now, that we don't need to be regimented down to our last minute, that what's appropriate is what we do at that time. So yes, at 8 o'clock, in the morning, we're the chef, and we're doing all those chefy things to get kids ready for their breakfast. And then we become that work person if we're lucky enough to have some tasks or activities to do. And then we flow into being a teacher, and we flow out of that, and we run into our garden. And we've kind of got this fluidity in life that we haven't had the luxury of for about 150 years since the Industrial Revolution, because we've been taught that we have to compartmentalize. There's an us between 9 and 12 and another version of us afterwards. So I'm enjoying this fluidity, which is something I've always practiced and always preached about, but watching other people, even if they don't call it that, the joy in their eyes, even though it's for the wrong reason and all the horrible things we know of, but just walking around the park, just seeing people engaging, the way that everyone is saying hello now, to me just brings joy to my heart. And so many people, with all of the tragedy and all of the issues around us, still finding that fluidity to enjoy life in that moment.
I think that's two really important points. You know, the fact that there has been a lot of positives that have come out of this, and you know, you walk around Caulfield Park and you'll see people wandering with a family, with their loved one, and they do at least, pass you by, give you a wave, smile, say hello. Whereas our lives pre-COVID people were just too busy to do that. Unless you knew someone, you would not, or you were from a regional community, you would not stop to say hello to somebody that you didn't know. You wouldn't kind of give them that time of day. You wouldn't, unless you were somebody that exercised, you wouldn't go out for a walk. Whereas now people are taking every possible opportunity to walk the dog. I think the dogs have had the best opportunity of any of this, but I've got to say they're being walked more than anything.
Yeah.
And that's great. So I kind of hope that we keep some of those things that we've been able to learn from the COVID period. I want to just ask Judith another point, then we'll come back to you, Morris, with some future stuff. But Judith, your biggest fan, which I assume will be watching right now, Carl, which is Judith's husband, and that's how we met. Well, as Judith knows, Carl and I and a running group, we catch up every Saturday and we go for a run, and that's kind of our routine. And I often say to people when they say to me, where do you find time for yourself when you're really busy? And how do you get your time to kind of check out and do your kind of effectively what is your health check? Well, my 6:30 run with the guys on a Saturday morning is as much as a health check as it is a workout, probably more of a health check, and a breakfast feed as well. But I wanted to ask you, Judith, in terms of how important do you think that kind of thing is for people to be able to have something that is a bit of it might be a route for us. It's a routine because we know that every Saturday we can look forward to it. We've been doing this for years. We check up on one another. How important is that? And I know for me it's been really important. We haven't been able to do that for the moment, but we still, as you know, have a house party, which all the guys call in on a house party, and we talk to one another. Some may be walking around the park, some may be having a coffee, but at least we're together. How important is that?
So important. So important. I know that when Carl gets back from one of your sessions, he just appears so much less stressed, happier. He's he's just so much happier, and it's because, as you said before, you were talking about before, it's not just about the exercise or the art of doing it. It's just about making time for yourself and socially connecting with others. So even though at the moment, as we've all heard, there's no physical contact or less physical contact, we can still socially and emotionally connect to others, whether it's through Zoom, house party, whatever it might be. It doesn't replace physical contact. I think that if you guys could go back to how it was,
absolutely,
you would. Of course you would, you know. But just like Morris was saying before, for the time being, he kept saying for now, for this time at the moment, let's just embrace it and do the things we wouldn't normally do and use applications like House Party. I never heard of it before, until now. And I know that it gives Carl, as an example, a lot of joy, and it de-stresses him. And I think that's so important, particularly too, if I can say for men as well, to be able to take that time to just communicate with your friends, just about how you're feeling, and also on a more serious note, how you're going, how you're coping, what's going on in your life, but also just to have fun and to connect with your friends. Of course, that's important for females too, but traditionally, I think that's something that generally, and being very general, that females would do anyway. Females get a lot of a sense of meaning and purpose through connections with others, whereas men on a general scale would get more of their meaning and purpose through task-oriented and feeling a sense of purpose through achievement. So even just going out for a run, or having said, I've done that, or, I've talked to my friends and it was fun, there is a sense of achievement in that. And then that's a really, really good thing. So although we're physically apart from each other, we can connect socially and emotionally. And I think that that's crucial. I think that that's so important that we connect in that way. And one thing I was discussing with a colleague the other day about, for all those people who are watching Netflix and Stan and watching all their shows and enjoying that, don't feel too guilty doing that. We were talking about the concept of social surrogates. And basically that's, if you've ever watched a show and you love the show, I pretty much guarantee that the reason you love that show is because you've connected with the characters, that you felt like you're in the show, or you've wondered what's going to happen in that relationship or what's going to happen next. And so, whilst we're physically distancing, get into the characters, watch your show, and they can act like a bit of social surrogates for you. That's okay, that's fine. Research has shown that, watching shows and or reading books as well, love reading. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I really get into the characters, the fictional, and I love it. It's just that lovely connection that we can all experience, even though no one's really there.
Morris, what about you? Maybe I don't know if you want to share on a personal note, kind of what's your outlet of that gives you that opportunity to keep, if you like, at I don't know, outside of the work, outside of the 9 to 5. And then also, I wanted to ask you about that tech stuff for a minute, because I know we talk often about the latest and the greatest, and we've spoken today about house parties and Facebook living and all that stuff at the moment. It's important to obviously connect the physical with the virtual. Where do you see things kind of coming together in the not too distant future?
So the first one, happy to share. For me, it's always been the difficulty has been, and maybe I need to go see Judith about this, is my brain doesn't stop. That's the issue, because I'm always seeing opportunity and I'm always thinking about how things might be reconstructed, deconstructed. So for me, the way to tap out of that is, one, I cook a lot when I'm home, and I love doing that. To me, that's a complete tunnel vision activity. I watch some television because I find I can actually turn my brain off through that. And what I enjoy mostly is I actually don't watch the TV, but through that I actually can think really well. My brain stops and I get clarity, strangely enough. So I find that as well. And the third thing for me is reading, like Judith. I find that to be a really therapeutic activity. And walking, I need to be near water. So that's kind of my foibles. They're the things that I find nourish me and allow me to move forward. But back to the other point about where we're headed with health. 10 years ago, I said that we would move in 2015 to a health and wellness phase where we would change away from waiting for our body to break down, which is what we've done forever as a human being. And after it broke down, we then went for help. We moved about 2015 into a wellness phase where some of us, and increasingly more of us, began to take responsibility for making sure our body doesn't break down. That's been a huge shift. And what we're anticipating, or what we're seeing right now, is I thought it would take us 15, 20 years for that to wash through society. It washed through society in March, Dave, because all of a sudden with COVID, we're now being told, don't wait to get it. Don't wait for the symptoms. Here's a whole list of things that you need to do to retain wellness. Wash your hands, stay 1.5 meters away. So we're all taking personal responsibility for our wellness now so that we don't get sick and don't need to go into medical care. That is going to be a mind shift, absolutely, from March, which is when we started this battle, through to the rest of our lives in millennium. This shift to wellness, where we now accept that we are responsible for making sure our body and our health is as good as it can be, and that we use our health and allied health practitioners in ways that allow that to happen. And what we're going to see, and what we're already seeing, is that technology, as we started the conversation earlier, is going to be the conduit that allows that to happen. That our technology, with our permission and great practitioners at the other end, will form an ecosystem where our devices, right now to our mobile phone, can gather information about us, can make some presumptive predictions, and maybe if we need it, go out and ask for help. So in other words, it understands that we're walking, our heart's not working the way it should be, it calls for 000, or it calls our medical practitioner and asks what to do. This is not far away. We can actually do this right now. We just have to want to connect all the pieces. And if I can spin our listeners just for a minute with where we're really headed in about 10 years from now, I'm doing some work now with Griffith University. I joined them late last year, working with 200 odd researchers looking at the future of rehabilitation resilience. Incredible researchers doing incredible work, things that we'll benefit from in the next decade or two. But I came to them on a notion I had, which was digital twinning, which is the reality that you and I now have a digital twin. It's an exact replica of us, but it only exists in zeros and ones.
Pretty scary.
It has all of our information, Dave, because your mobile phone is an example of this. It knows more about you than Haley does, perhaps, or than the kids, because it's with you all the time. But what it has, and I've seen this, I mean, we've actually worked through this. This is live in university. It also has all your internal structure. It has all of your skeletal. It has all of your blood. It has all of that virtually. It knows you inside out, literally. And what we're talking about is a world where we will begin to pre-test anything that has to happen to us physically onto that digital twin before we actually have to do it physically. We're seeing doctors already use this kind of technology to pre-do their operations. Before they physically touch a person, they're actually doing it digitally over and over and over again. So the world of digital twinning will come to us in about 5 or 10 years' time. And one thing I'm spinning on at the moment is how different COVID would be in that 10, 15-year horizon, because it would actually be our digital twin that would be infected by it first. And we would be able to know whether, in fact, we were about to physically be infected. I know this sounds science fiction, though, but you know this world that I love so much. We would actually be able to tell through our digital twin how healthy our environment was, how likely we were to catch or to find this thing, and how we could share the information around us with everybody else really easily. So it's a very different landscape of health and wellness moving forward.
Really interesting. That has certainly taken us on a great journey, hasn't it? I want to bring us back, and Judith, I'm going to ask you in a minute about mindfulness and how that all works. Before we do that, a couple of things. Firstly, we were running a poll during the night of what people's main stresses were. So we're going to put that up, the results of that up now, so people can have a look at where that's all rating. The other thing is, Maurice, you did mention the fact that people's, in terms of health and well-being and personal hygiene and where we're going and that kind of fitness. And I know that's something that people are really thinking about right now. Well, in a few weeks' time, we've got a special guest that we're going to have on talking about fitness and nutrition. So keeping fit, obviously, during, but also where the industry is going into the future as well. So that will be a really interesting topic that we're going to run in a fortnight. Next week, we're going to be talking about the education game. So, you know, what skills are necessary to get that job, and what learning can be done in terms of being able to achieve it, and how important that whole online learning, being able to kind of learn in different ways. And I know people are doing that right now. So we'll look at exploring that with a bit more detail next week. But I want to come back to you, Judith. It's been great tonight. And I know that we're going to put up Judith's details, which is Southeastern Psychology, which is scpsychology.com.au. Did I get that right?
You did.
We're going to put that up now as well. And obviously we'll put Maurice's details up there as well, the websites for both, if anyone wants more information from tonight. But I want to kind of finish having a wrap-up discussion about mindfulness, about meditation, some of the tools that people can be using right now. If people are feeling a bit stressed, you know, what can people be thinking about right now to get themselves through the coming days, the coming weeks?
I just felt some people get really stressed when you mentioned the word mindfulness. I could feel it.
Take our stresses away.
Yeah, well, look, I'm sort of going to go like an hourglass where I'll start general and then go more specific. But look, the first thing that I want to say before I talk about that is that it's okay to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. It's really important that we understand that at any time, your feelings are always valid, and it's okay to feel what you're feeling. There's theory to suggest that we are every age that we've ever been. So I'm in my 40s. my early 40s, and I can say with full confidence that there's a 3-year-old in me, there's a 10-year-old in me, there's a 20-year-old in me. And in this pandemic, through this pandemic, I've seen many ages that I can certainly become. The other day, I think I got in touch with my 3-year-old self for sure, and just tantrumed and cried, and it wasn't pretty, but I allowed myself to feel that. And that's being mindful as well, letting yourself feel whatever it is you need to feel without any judgment. But then it's about, the most important part of that is that we're able to come out of it. So feel what you need to feel, and cry or get angry, feel any emotion. I think that that's very healthy. But then it's about coming out of it. So how do you come out of it? It's about getting in touch with healthy adult self. So it's about feeling what you're feeling, that 4-year-old self or whatever it might be, and then having healthy adult Judith come in and say things like, it's okay, you're feeling really angry right now, but you're going to get through this, and we're all in this together, but your challenges are this and this and this, and you're going to be okay, and you're going to get through this. You could have your adolescent side come out, where you just say, right, I'm sick of this, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to go out and get some alcohol, I'm going to go and throw a party, I'm going to go, and that your rebellious side might come out. How old are you there? Probably about 16, I would say. But again, feel that, get angry, but then have healthy adult come in and say, hang on, maybe that's not the best thing to do right now. Alcohol causes more problems than it solves. Maybe I need to just reassure myself that I can get through this and do something else, distract myself with another activity that's more helpful and more adult. Of course, if you are these ages, you're a 3-year-old watching tonight, or you're a teen watching, you can tap into the healthy teen, healthy self, or talk to your parents about it, or talk to your friends, your loved ones who care about you. I mean, I do always say to my teens, your friends are like those Luna Park mirrors, those, they don't really, you look big and weird, and so I'd probably say talking to your friends can be helpful, but I would say talk to an adult, talk to someone who can help you through it and help you through all those feelings. So where does mindfulness come in? I guess I personally talk about a bigger and better version of mindfulness. I call it kindfullness. David, have you heard of it?
I'm ready to go. Tell us.
Yeah, so kindfullness is the bigger and better version of mindfulness. Yeah. Basically, it's being mindful of your own thoughts and feelings, but being kind to yourself at the same time. So you might sit in a particular space at home that's comfortable. I like to have some therapy in my hand, just some putty it's quite self-soothing, and I love it. And basically, I just say nice things to myself. I just say you're loved, and you're you, and you're enough. And I do things and say things that make me feel good and nourish me. And I think that that's so important. And once we nourish ourselves and we're aware of how we speak to ourselves and how we're feeling, we're then able to be kind to others and spill that kindness, that kindfullness over to other people. So how do we do that? Well, you said it before, Dave, when you said, and Morris as well, when you said at the park, just smiling at a stranger. Well, that's an act of kindfullness. You're just smiling at someone rather than looking away can really make a difference to their day. I was at a cafe the other day and someone paid it forward. They just said, oh, your coffee's paid for. I'm like, what? It's paid for? And I thought, what a great idea. So then I paid for the person after me, paid for their coffee. So this is what I'm talking about, kindfullness. And while you're being kind, be aware of that and enjoy it. Everyone wins when we're acting in a kindful way. There's nothing to lose. You're aware of yourself, you're being mindful, and as well as you're letting that kindfulness spill over into others. So that's what kindfulness is. It's you can read more about it. You can just Google kindfulness and you'll get all this stuff. One thing in terms of meditation that I wanted to say, I think that word scares a lot of people. Oh, I want you to meditate, especially young people. I found they're like, oh, Judith, don't even talk about that. Like, don't talk about meditation. But I personally prefer healing. I like to say the word healing. I don't know, it's just a bit different. And you can do it for 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes a day, where if you YouTube healing music as opposed to meditation music, it sounds a little bit different. I want to know what you think if you do this. So you can just listen to healing music and literally just close your eyes. And just like Morris's screensaver has pictures of all these lovely places that he's traveled to, you can go there in your head. You know, you can listen to this healing music and go wherever you want to go. Let your imagination take you wherever you want to go. You want to go to Paris, you can go there. You want to go to Israel. And just, again, part of that, the healing is to use all your senses. Just look at what you can smell. What can you taste? What am I looking at? What can I see? What can I feel? Use all your senses and just enjoy that time that you're relaxing, not meditating, won't use that, or healing. And I think it is healing. It's quite healing when you do it. And you can just do it for 5 minutes. You don't just sit there zen for hours. You can do it for 5-10 minutes. And I guarantee when you make it part of your everyday, you will look forward to it like nothing else, because
that's terrific.
Just let your mind take you where you want to go.
Yeah. That is absolutely fantastic. I think that, Judith, you've given us some really good, finished with some really, really good tips for everybody about kind of getting through, thinking about, especially, I love that word kindfulness. I think that is such a great way to summarise how we should be looking in terms of being true to ourselves, but also true to others. And it does capture the real essence to looking after one another during these times. And as you say, having that time out and a little bit of healing along the way. So thank you so much, Judith. It's been wonderful. And I say once again, for those that want to access Judith and get some help, have a conversation with her about, you know, some of the things we've spoken to tonight. Her details will be, we'll put them on this chat now. Thank you to you, Morris, again, for absolutely keeping it real and looking at where things are at, and a real practical application to the conversation that we've had, particularly around an important topic that we've spoken about tonight. I think that one of the things that everyone will agree, we've approached it not from a kind of a negative, oh, isn't this terrible? That's not what we want to do, any of this stuff. This is all about looking through a very positive, optimistic, way forward perspective. And that's what all of these topics are going to be about. It's about what can we learn from now? What can we do in the future to ensure that our lives are certainly the best that they can possibly be? Thank you, Morris. Thank you, Judith. Thank you, everyone, for listening in.
Thank you.
Just to finally finish, the survey had 71% was family and friends, and 24% was losing a job. So there you go. Overwhelmingly, we value family and friends more than anything else, and that's the way it should be. Thank you, everybody. Have a lovely night.
Thank you.
See you again next week.
See you all next week. Bye.
Morris Miselowski is a futurist, which means without using a DeLorean, he reckons he can accurately predict what Australia's future will sort of look like.
Great Scott!
And if you like being alive, it's great news for you.
Each and every one of you is indeed a futurist.
Expo 2009, but within that expo is Store of the Future, basically. So 2020 is Store of the Future. And with me is Morris Miselowski. I got it right this morning. Good morning, Morris.
Morning, Morris.
Now, Morris is what they call a futurist. I mean, and
future, in fact, you think that 60% of us will be doing jobs that don't exist now?
I think we're doing tasks that don't exist now. We're seeing huge industries rise.
If you knew the answer anyway, they'll ask you a question anyway. Were you surprised that we feel as though we're not being overburdened by technology?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I knew the result.
Report today is saying extend school hours to 5:30 and sort of in that difference between when kids finish now and 5:30.
That other Australian industries face job cuts. Should any sectors in particular be concerned?
I think most sectors nowadays need to be concerned. We're really going through a seismic shift across the entire planet. And
talking about the fact that older people and cars and driving aren't necessarily a good mix. So do we really want people in their hundreds driving on our highways?
Hey, remember I'm talking about the future.
Yeah.
We're into this semi-driverless car stage by then. And in fact, what we want are less people behind the wheel. We want more people moving around as they want, but the car's doing most of the thinking. So in fact, in